Liberace has been unconscious all day. His condition is very grave. News of his illness has brought out his most devoted fans. They continue to keep what amounts to a vigil outside his elaborate Palm Springs home.
Yes, when we heard he was ill, we felt quite bad about it.
Dozens of fans and a small army of reporters and photographers continue to wait outside Liberace's Palm Springs home for the latest word. Anna Kay is one of the many fans here who has been truly touched by the entertainer.
He's my inspiration. Thinking about him, I learned how to play piano.
Liberace's attorney, Joel Throat, said the pianist is surrounded by close family members and friends. He told reporters today he was concerned about the circus-like atmosphere developing outside the house. But he did have a message for Liberace's fans.
It is his wish that his fans remember him in his glory, which was as a great entertainer, the greatest showman on earth.
Now, some of those devoted fans have been outside his home for days now. It seems likely that they'll stay there. They tell us they simply want to be close to Liberace.
Chris, I understand we can expect more announcements not too long after this newscast.
Indeed, Ricky, the word we have is that his attorney will be holding another press conference at about 5:30. So any information they release at that point we'll have on our 6 o'clock show.
Thank you, Chris. Chris Johnson with the latest on Liberace's condition.
Well, one of the few people allowed in to see the dying entertainer is his Las Vegas doctor. Marty Van Dorn spoke with Dr. Elias Ghanem earlier today. And Marty, did he happen to mention what his condition was?
Dr. Ghanem says Liberace is in a coma and not expected to come out of it, Dave. Our camera crew in Palm Springs saw Dr. Ghanem last night. You can see him in the video coming up right there. Entering the home of Liberace, Dr. Ghanem has been treating the pianist since 1972. That's 15 years. Before last night, however, he says he had not seen Liberace since around the end of September when he advised the entertainer to take some time off. But last night in Palm Springs, Dr. Ghanem says he saw a dying man.
He was in coma and still is, and he's not expected to live, really.
Dr. Ghanem says the only people being allowed in are close friends. His personal manager is there along with his lawyer, 2 housekeepers, and of course his sister and other family members are also present, Dave.
Now, there have been the claims that Liberace is afflicted with AIDS. Any confirmation of that?
No, in fact, Dr. Ghanem...
We have it. Meantime, Candace Armstrong reports his fans have been outside the house all day in Palm Springs, California. A final audience for the superstar who gave them 4 decades of their favorite music.
Loyal Liberace fans lined the wall facing the famous showman's Palm Springs home, Casa de Liberace. It's relatively unguarded here, except for a few private security men. Tour buses filled with oglers passed by in hopes of a glimpse of some activity. The fans say they are here to let the ailing pianist know they love him. Dolores Parker grew up in Liberace's home state of Wisconsin.
At one time, they said his mother saved his arm. He had a bad infection, and the doctors wanted to amputate his arm, and she said no. She took poultices, made them up, and healed his arm and saved his arm for playing the piano.
The neighborhood Catholic Church has been busy with grievers lighting candles and saying prayers for their star. Liberace is with his family and Las Vegas doctor Elias Ghanem, who cared for the late Elvis Presley. His attorney says Liberace made it through the night but fell into unconsciousness this morning.
It is his wish that his fans remember him in his glory, which was as a great entertainer, the greatest showman on earth.
In Palm Springs, Candace Armstrong, News 13.
It's next Thursday. That service has been scheduled for 11 o'clock in the morning at St. Anne's Church. Liberace's death has caused speculation about what will happen to the properties he owns here. His publicist says the future status of his house, restaurant, and museum won't be known until Liberace's will is open.
Records, but numbers don't begin to tell the story of the show business legend who died yesterday at the age of 67. Liberace was an original, flamboyant, full of personality, an entertainer in the grand tradition.
I don't care if it's August, December, or June.
His television program, featuring his brother George, was a staple in the early days of the medium. Liberace's philosophy? He never wanted to go unnoticed. Considering his flair for showmanship, it seemed he was always in the public eye. Yet while audiences adored him, critics were quick to criticize.
Well, at first, I was hurt by it because they called me a flash in the pan and all that sort of thing. And here today, gone tomorrow, you know.
But Liberace would stay, charming fans through 4 decades.
I dared to be different, and of course, when you dare to be different, you get criticized, you know. But eventually, I think some of my adverse comments and all that turned into praise.
He backed up his extravagant wardrobe with talent and was rarely seen without his most famous prop.
Well, you notice, I always adorn my piano with a candelabra. And you know, the audience seems to sense that my inspiration is extracted from the warm glow of the tiny flickering flame.
Surprisingly, for a time in the late 1950s, Liberace was persuaded to abandon all the familiar trappings.
Certain people are always trying to get me to change. I had no candelabras and no costumes and everything. And it was like putting Marlene Dietrich in a house dress. You know, it was not Dietrich and it wasn't Liberace.
Liberace's recent stage shows around the world were a throwback to another era, giving fans something larger than life. He remained popular, if not controversial, to the very end. A show business legend with no successor likely to ever replace it. Liberace was in a coma when the end came. Doctors said he was suffering from anemia, emphysema.
Report from Catherine Mann in Hollywood.
When pianist Liberace died at his Palm Springs home Wednesday, his death was blamed on cardiac arrest due to congestive heart failure brought on by an inflammation of the brain. The Las Vegas Sun newspaper, however, reported and continues to report that Liberace was suffering from AIDS. His publicists and manager are still denying he suffered from the disease. Today, the Riverside County, California Coroner's Office is rejecting the death certificate and planning an autopsy. California law requires the investigation of a death which might have been caused by a contagious disease, or a death which occurred in the home without the presence of a physician. Liberace was one of Las Vegas' biggest headliners, and next Thursday...
The coroner said records indicate the possibility that Liberace died of a contagious disease. He said he would...
That county has rejected the death certificate signed for Liberace and wants to do an independent investigation to determine the cause of death. Cause of death on the death certificate was listed as heart failure brought on by an inflammation of the brain. The coroner wants to know if the death was caused by AIDS. California law requires a coroner's investigation when a contagious disease is involved and when a death occurs outside a hospital without a doctor present. Dr. Ronald Daniels of Whittier signed the death certificate, and California officials say he could face disciplinary action if it turns out that his report was incorrect. Coroner's office says the body may be released late today, but that a report on the official cause of death probably won't be ready for 2 or 3 days. Dr. Elias Ghanem was Liberace's personal physician here in Las Vegas for the last 15 years. He traveled to Palm Springs on Monday to see the entertainer before he died. Dr. Ghanem has joined us live from his office tonight to talk for a few minutes about these latest developments in the story. First, Dr. Ghanem, why do you feel that they rejected the death certificate? Was it just the persistent rumor of AIDS?
I believe so. I don't know what the death certificate read. I have not seen it. When I went and visited Liberace on Monday, he was in a coma, and I was told that they will let me know whenever he passes away, and they did. But I think, you know, this thing is getting out of hand a little bit, and I think that I'm trying to reach the coroner's office right now to reach a compromise with them and see if we can solve this without having them to do an autopsy on the body.
Now, did California officials actually contact you, and if so, what exactly do they want?
The coroner's office contacted me, and they wanted some information. I told them that I didn't know who I was talking to because just someone called, and they just gave me a name. And I told them I'd be glad to sit down with them, and I have to keep the confidentiality of the patient, but I still will be glad to cooperate with them if they would just let him be buried in peace and let his family be in peace. I've been in contact with his sister in Palm Springs, and we're trying to solve this problem without having them to go through all of these problems at the present time.
They are saying now it may take 2 or 3 days to get a decision. Will you turn over his medical records if they ask for them through the proper channels?
I think I will have to discuss this with his sister first and see if she'll give me the permission. I don't know about the exact law that requires whether I should release any information after someone dies. But I will be glad to cooperate with them. I told them that, and I told them that there is no need to put the family through what it's going to. I hate for it to turn into like a circus atmosphere at the present time.
We'll let you answer your call. Thank you, Dr. Ghanem, for being with us this afternoon.
Thank you.
George?
Hundreds of fans crowded into a church in Palm Springs today to honor Liberace. The service was supposed to be closed to the public, but when family members saw how many people showed up, they decided to allow them inside. Liberace's eulogy was delivered by his longtime friend and neighbor Vincent Franza, and a telegram from President and Mrs. Reagan was read at the service. The president in his telegram said, "Liberace was a true superstar who will be remembered in many ways, mostly as a kind man who lived his life with great joy." Another memorial for Liberace will be held in Las Vegas.
Gathered to remember the entertainer today at a memorial service in Palm Springs. Hundreds packed the Catholic Church for the service, and many more waited outside. Friends eulogized the 67-year-old flamboyant entertainer
within a matter of hours. Just a few minutes ago, a spokesman for Liberace met with newsmen outside the Palm Springs mansion to answer questions about the entertainer's condition. Earlier today, Eyewitness News spoke with Liberace's personal physician, who just returned to Las Vegas from California. The prognosis is not good.
He is unconscious, he's in a coma, and he is not responsive.
Elias Ghanem has been Liberace's personal physician for the past 15 years. He says there is virtually no chance of a recovery, nothing else that can be done medically, and he's somewhat surprised the entertainer has held on this long. But Ghanem steadfastly refuses to discuss other details of Liberace's condition.
Can we assume that the world will learn more about his medical condition following his death?
Well, Liberace has always led a very private life. And I hope the whole world will remember him as Mr. Showmanship and nothing else.
Ghanem reiterated several times that Liberace was concerned with how he would be remembered by his fans, but the doctor would not comment on reports that the glitzy showman was dying of AIDS. Ghanem did shed light on one persistent story, that Liberace's medical condition might have something to do with a watermelon diet.
It is true he did go on the watermelon diet. That was a year or two ago. I don't remember the exact time. He did lose the weight, but he did gain the weight back after I took him off it. So the watermelon diet did not play a role in his being ill now.
Because of the suddenness of the coma, Liberace was unable to pass along any final messages to friends or relatives. Ghanem says the one message he thinks Liberace would want to send to his fans is that there is no pain in these final hours. Liberace's sister, his personal manager, and a handful of friends will be with the entertainer until the end, making sure that his last